Well, Chief Minister Howard Quayle, Tynwald Day 2019. Hard to believe that this is actually now past the halfway mark in your administration.
I know, James, they say time flies when you're having fun, and it's certainly been flying.
It's they say a week's a long time in politics, so obviously 2.5 years, just 2.25 years remaining in this tenure is. But when you look at the next few years, are there any particular initiatives, any particular projects you want to, if not certainly sign off, progress further down the line to a certain point?
Well, obviously, there's the programme for government. I want to make sure that we deliver on that. We're on target to deliver it and all the various items that we've agreed to as a Tynwald. However, I suppose the Sir Jonathan Michael's report and the implementation of major changes in the health service and social care is absolutely key for me. Obviously, telecommunications implementation to make sure we've got a far better megabits per second download speed across the whole of the island rather than just Douglas-centric. Gas regulation are just some of them. We're also going to be building a new terminal in Liverpool, which I'm very pleased and proud of, that the Isle of Man government will be owning. People of the island will be owning property in the UK, and it will be a strategic link for them to get to Liverpool and the rest of the United Kingdom.
Lots of initiatives then. Just looking back over the last 12 months, as we often tend to on Tynwald Day, to reflect what's gone immediately before, have there been any particular highlights, or has there not been time to breathe? Because I'm aware at the moment you're juggling Brexit, beneficial ownership, just to name but a few, and continue the day-to-day operation, the day-to-day running of our island going.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, James. One of the things I'm proudest of is not myself, but that the officers working in the relative government departments have managed to deliver policies and improvements for the people of the Isle of Man, whilst at the same time dealing with Brexit, which has been a massive piece of work. And if you look at some of our neighbours, all they've been able to focus on is trying to get through Brexit, whereas we've carried on business as usual. And on top of that, we've been dealing with Brexit and beneficial ownership, substance, etc. So that's probably one of the things that people maybe take for granted because they haven't seen the problems, but those problems have been fixed behind the scenes and the preparation's been going on. But also, if you look in the last 12 months, I think if you compare the number of people working on the Isle of Man, 2018 compared to 2017, there's 1,075 extra people working, paying tax and national insurance. Businesses have seen their growth averaging at just over 9%, which is truly phenomenal. Despite all the extra exemptions we've given with work permits, there's been over 400 extra work permits given out in 2018 than 2017. So that shows an economy growing. We can't take it for granted. An awful lot of hard work has gone into helping the economy grow, both from the private sector and the public sector, but that's where we need to continue to keep our focus on.
You mentioned substance there, you mentioned Brexit. Let's move away from those watchwords, if you like, because Tynwald Day, yes, there's a political element, of course there is, but it is also about so much more. So as a proud Manxman, what does today, July the 5th, mean for you and your family?
Well, I think it's a time to reflect. We all have, on the Isle of Man, we all have our busy lives, and family life can make us forget the fact that we live in a stunningly beautiful country, clean air, UNESCO biosphere, probably the lowest crime rate in Europe, if not the world. And sometimes we take this for granted. And I think we sing our Manx national anthem, and the words just come out without any thought. But sweet mountain air, it's O land of our birth, O gem of God's earth. And I truly believe that the Isle of Man is a gem of God's earth. And I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't believe that it was worth fighting for, worth protecting, and worth ensuring that we pass over a beautiful island to our children and our grandchildren, that isn't hindered with debt, that we have affordable and sensible policies, sustainable policies going forward, so that the next generation aren't disadvantaged, that we have intergenerational fairness, I suppose, is a key phrase.
Talk about the generations past, present, future. The day's ceremony in itself today hasn't altered much really for its very, very nature. But in terms of the associated activities, in terms of what goes on around the Fairfield, etc., that has evolved. In what way do you think it's evolved?
Well, I think credit should go to the president of Tynwald, Steve Roden, we've altered the format so that I personally used to think that the politicians were sort of divorced from the public on Tynwald Day. You would go to Tynwald Day, you would go up on the hill, and then you would have the President's banquet in the evening. So you never got to speak to anyone really, other than a short, quick hello when you were coming out of the church. So now that's been altered, and our evenings I like spending on the Tynwald field. You can go dancing the Quayle in the tent. There's Manx culture there, and the politicians, and we take our Tynwald guests to that event too, so they can just get a feel for the island and its culture. And music plays a big part in my life, as you know, and music is there in plenty on Tynwald Fair Day.
And just finally then, we talk about the music, the arts, the culture, we have the history and the tradition. How important is it to have a day which, politics aside, unifies, brings us together? It brings the Manx diaspora together to a certain point, wherever they may be, in whichever part of the world.
I think it's incredibly important that we all should reflect, and sometimes we don't. We're so busy. I think W.H. Davies wrote the poem Solitude or Leisure. What is this world full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. And I think it's really important that we reflect on where we live. Manxness, I mean, I don't consider, my family have lived on the Isle of Man for hundreds of years, but I've got friends who have moved to the island 12 years ago, and I consider them to be more Manx than me because they've fitted into the island, they've taken the culture on board, they love the island, they love exploring, they buy local produce and give the support they can to the locals. And I think that's so it's not just people who've been born on the Isle of Man living throughout the world, or people who have a Manx pedigree that goes back as far as my family does. It's newcomers to the island who have fitted in. They've embraced the island, and I think the day is as much for them as it is for the people like myself.
Well, I hope you and your family, Chief Minister, and indeed the wider population have a super Tynwald Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.